Good morning, guys. It's early dark 30. Got a trailer sitting in here with a 4-ton Goodman unit on it for a changeout. Let's place some musical vehicles and get hooked up. This is one of the new Sear 2 Goodmans. Of course, it's got a new air handler too. We're going to put this in place of an old 10 Sear Trane. So I'll get this truck out of the way and we'll get started. Well, she's all hooked up and chained down. Might grab us a fan so that we can put it in the equipment room. It's still summertime here in Tennessee, a little bit. Also getting a little bit of scrap metal. This air handler is much taller than the old one, so I'm going to have to do a little modification to the ductwork. All right, I think we got everything. If not, we're not too far from the shop, so we'll head on down there and try to get inside the gates before the parking lot gets full of people. Now, y'all know me, I need all the beauty sleep I can get, so normally I don't get up quite this early in the morning, but this is one of the county schools. It's probably the largest elementary school we've got in the county, and in about 15-20 minutes you won't be able to get in down here at all for all the buses and parents dropping off children. So I wanted to get here and get inside the gate before it gets too crazy. Now, if they only gave me the right key. Thought I better get out and look before I took a run and go up through here. It's pitch black. Yeah, I see something there. Looks like a clean out. It's so dark out here. Alrighty, I'm going to open up this. There's the unit we're replacing there. I'm going to get opened up and figure out if I can get this thing up here or not. Might have to wait till daylight. Okay, we're in. Here's what we're replacing. Over top of the sewage pump. The new one's going to be, you know how these air handlers today are getting. They're getting taller and taller. It's going to be about 7 or 8 inches taller than this guy. And as you can see, it starts turning pretty quick once it comes out. It's got a flex connector here, so we'll have to do a little creative ductwork up there on the top. Everything else should work out pretty good. This old 1/8" line set. Apparently I left here, this is the school system, I left here a little over 9 years ago, and according to them, they've replaced the compressor about 3 times in the last few years. So I bet you that 1/8" line, that big old trap down there, is probably going to be you know, full of oil and other compressor bits. So we're going to cut it out of there, and we're going to go back with a 7/8" line set. It's very short, just goes through the wall here, so that'll be just fine for a 4-ton unit. While we're waiting on daylight so we can see where we're at outside, let's get a look at this and see what we're going to be involved in. You can see it's single phase. We only have 2 lines coming in, 2 fuses. It's got 60 amp fuses here. However, condensing unit, air handler 33. We have a 50 amp breaker, so that's really just a disconnect in there. Those 60 amp fuses would be just like 2 pieces of copper. Got a 60 amp breaker in here. Hopefully it's got an 8 kW heat kit, because that's what I ordered. Can't put more than that on a 50, especially with these new ECM motors. So thermostat wire. This will be coming in from the building control system. This is going to the outdoor unit. And this is for the smoke detector that shuts the unit off if it senses smoke in the duct there. So we'll have to get that unhooked. Power comes in right up here. Oh, look at that nice knockout. Huh. And then this guy will be fresh air damper. Have to see if that's 12 or 24 volts or 120 volts, so we can figure out how we're going to have to rig it up. But we'll take this door off and we'll be able to tell more about it. Again, this little white wire, it's probably just a set of dry contacts here, but you can see it comes in here, has two wires, red and white, and all it's doing is breaking the red wire on the air handler, which will kill the blower and everything else if there's a fire. However, this damper here, it's got its own little relay in here and its own transformer, because this is the unit transformer and that guy back there is for the damper apparently. They've got it hooked into the common on one side of the relay, and then you have the control coming right over here to nothing. They never hooked it up, so I'm guessing that damper's either stayed closed the whole time or somebody's got it open all the time. So looks like we don't have to do anything with it unless we want to make it better when we leave. I went by and looked at the front end on the building control system at their main office day before yesterday, and you had a compressor command, which I'm going to assume is yellow. You had a reversing valve command, orange. We had an electric heat, which is the white. We had a fan, which is the green. So of course we got red, common here. So it should be straightforward. Normal colors, blue for common, everything else is just like you'd normally hope to see. So I'm going to get this unhooked. These building control systems, they've got a unitary controller probably over inside the actual offices, and it can either be powered up by the transformer in the unit, or some of them they put separate transformers on them, and then it just used dry contacts to switch the stuff on and off coming from the unit. You know, would send our red back there, and then it would send it back out on the yellow. So I'm not sure which this is, but either way there shouldn't be any voltage on these wires once we turn our transformer off, which we've done. So I can go ahead and unhook this safely. I was looking for my initials on this filter because I thought maybe it hadn't been changed since I left here 9 years ago. If you can see on this thing, this side going out over here has never been crimped. So Johnson Controls put this in to start with back in the early 2000s. So they just never got around to hooking this air damper up. We'll look at it and see what we have to do to make it work. One thing to be aware of when you're at a place that has three-phase power like they do here is to make sure that you use the right voltage tap on your transformer. You can see this one's on the 200 volt tap instead of the 230 volt, which means they have 208 volt here, chances are. Spiders everywhere in here. I keep getting the webs in my mouth. I've gone about as far as I can go on this guy until I cut these refrigerant lines loose. It's starting to get daylight outside, so I'm going to get some gauges and jump out there and see if there's anything in this guy. You can tell one's been worked on a lot when there's only 2 screws in a door that normally has 6. Well, I was getting ready. I was going to pump it into itself because I wasn't sure what kind of refrigerant they use for these R22 systems. But I got the high side hose on and she's flat. A lot of oil down in here too. Something probably blew a hole in it in here somewhere. But at any rate, we don't have to worry about it. It's all gone to that great accumulator in the sky. I found all the extra screws on top of the disconnect. I bet that big old blower didn't have any problem with this little bitty trap. What do you think? It's probably sucking backwards through it the whole time. Pan looks pretty clean though. I'm going to drag that coil out of there, and then I guess I'll jump up here and cut some of this insulation back and see what we've got up there. Not bad for 20 years. It may have been cleaned once or twice, but probably not often. Good news is the bottom will come out easy. It's just sitting there. I was feeling around for screws and there wasn't any, so gravity did its job. But old mastic is some tough stuff. I'll have to dig it out of there. I always do the easy one first. All right, she's outside. And now we need to see how tall that is from the plenum up to the supply duct here, and see what we have to do to make 58 inches fit in there. And it looks like 58 is right to the actual where the S-lock used to be. So we can probably make that thing fit pretty good. May have to bend these drives down and trim them off or something, but I think it's not as bad as it could have been. Especially, see how that duct starts going out at an angle just as soon as it takes off the top. So that's the only thing I was really worried about. Goodman makes a 24-inch wide 4-ton air handler with the new style. That's only 53 inches tall, but it only had one AHRI match for a heat pump, and it was for the old 16 series GSX 14 series, or GSX 16. So I'm not sure what their plan is for that air handler. Maybe they just haven't got around to testing it yet. Doing a little housekeeping, getting the big chunks out anyway, and then we can start trying to fit the new one back in here. Well, my first look inside their new air handler. I guess these constant torque motors are a lot heavier, so they've got this little brace across here for shipping to keep from bending the blower deck, because you know they don't use the thickest metal on these things. And the big difference is, of course, this big terminal strip. They've got your thermostat hookups right here, but they've got the speed taps for your fan right over here. And apparently this black jumper here can be moved like it is right now. You've got speeds 1 through 5. If you move this jumper and put it on the same terminal as you're putting your tap wire, either 2, 3, 4, or 5, it'll give you 9 speeds, 9 distinct speeds on a normal 5-pin motor here. So also looks like this equalizer tube for the TXV is aluminum, so we'll open that up down there and get a look at that too, because I'm going to have to take this thing apart. I can't pick this thing up and wrestle it into a tight quarters like that without gutting it. Give me a good chance to look at it. Well, good news, guys. It was just bad lighting. It's not aluminum. It's actually black. I've got one of the rubber heat shrink things on it, probably to keep it from rubbing somewhere. Pretty nice and neat in here. They did a really good job with their little capillary tubes down here, small copper or small aluminum tubes. TXV has actually the distributor's mounted there, so the TXV screws right on top of it. Looks like it's got an adjustable TXV as well. I like these long, they do these spun ends on this. I'd rather have a rubber plug I could pull out, but they've made these extra deep, so once you cut it off, you still should have a pretty good socket. I wondered, since they didn't have the Schrader here, what I would do about letting the pressure off before I cut it. But they've got an extra Schrader back there behind the TXV equalizer, looks like, so I can take that cap off and check it for charge and get rid of whatever's on it right now before I cut the spun copper off the end. And I usually leave these secondary drain pans in here. I usually take this top piece off if it's in a situation where you're not horizontal and don't need it. But the door has a hole in it and got a nice gasket, and this fits through it good. You can tell that that would, you know, affect airflow a little bit. Of course, if it's laying down, you don't have an option. You have to put it there. But since this is a, you know, a storage room out here that nobody ever comes in, I'll probably go ahead and leave this off and just put some tape over the hole in the door, maybe a piece on each side or something. I went ahead and let the majority of the charge off of here while I could get to it easy. I'll just put this cap back on, tighten it up good, and be ready to cut these later. So now we got to make that tall thing fit in that short space. So I'll start trimming up there a little bit and trying to make us some room. This duct is the same width as my air handler from side to side. So I'm just going to bend these drives straight on both sides, and might even, you know, straighten that down and let it come right into the back of it, because you got some movement down here, and this box is a little deeper than both this air handler and the last one too. So I think we can make it line up, but this alarm wiring just keeps getting in the way here, so I'm gonna grab a clamp and clamp it over against that duct where it should have been to start with. Okay, got that strapped out of my way and got this side here bent down flat, back kind of bent a little better. What I'm gonna do here, if I bend this straight up flat, it'll set on top of the right on top of the air handler. However, you've got these flanges we'll have to clear as we slide back in there. So after I bend that, I'm going to leave it together right now so it'll be good and stiff so I can bend it. I will cut right here and fold it up a little more to give me some room to slide this thing back in there. And then it should just be a matter of trying to get some screws in it and tape on it. So I bent this straight out, but then I trimmed it up on both sides and bent the whole thing up a little bit to give me my clearance so I can slide straight back. I've got to modify this a little bit down here. The old unit was a little wider than the new unit, so I'll have to cap one side or the other, maybe a little bit of both, but I may just hold it all to this side and just cap it right in there. So I'll go bend me up some metal and do that. Okay, just bent these little pieces here, screwed them in with some little tech screws. Went ahead and put some good gloves on and reached in there and cleaned off the turning vanes in this bottom 90 down there. So we're ready to try to get this thing slid in there. Okay, got her sitting in there. I was checking that old filter to make sure it fit. The Goodman paperwork said 19.5 by 20, but these fit just fine. I'll get with the custodian here when I see him and let him bring me a new one out to put in there. I've got it screwed down on the bottom with some little tech screws there. You know, the heads won't really affect this filter as it slides over them. And then you can see how I bent that up to give me some room to slide those flanges back in. So I'm gonna grab a level off the truck and we'll start screwing this thing in and getting the top wrapped up. I'm going to go ahead and throw this blower and coil back in there to give it, you know, some weight, so it'll be kind of as heavy as it's going to be. But I wanted to show you, there's a ground screw and a you know, a ground wire that's connected into the harness here on the back of the motor. They should have put it out front where you can take it loose before you actually pull the motor out, but they didn't. They put it in the back. So if you're in a tight spot somewhere and you go dragging the motor out, just remember, you gotta, after you get it out so far, you have to take that screw loose. Okay, I have the unit attached to the ductwork everywhere. I haven't taped it yet, but I will. That back one will be the hardest thing, and I'll show you how I usually do it when I get to that point. You can see the duct right up in there. So what we're gonna do now is gonna have to figure this electrical out. Here's the heat kit. I just got one with lugs on it instead of a breaker. There's no point in having another breaker right here when you got a big disconnect there and the main breaker right there. And if it's anything like the junk I've been getting lately, the breaker that's in your air handler will probably go bad in the first year, or the disconnect, whatever they call those Chinese made things. So what I'm going to do is put this in there, but I think I'm going to go ahead and bring my power in right down here, pull me a hole in there, because it's just coming from there, and that'll be a lot better than trying to wrap all the way around the thing like it was before. And if I use any of these holes up here, it's going to kind of be up in the way of all your low voltage if you ever had to change a transformer or something. So if I can keep it right down against the blower deck, I think it'll be out of the way and shortest possible route as well. Okay, here's how we're going to integrate the smoke. It was using this red and white wire, and before it was after the fuse, no, it was before the fuse on that Trane, but this comes out of the transformer off of the 24 volt and comes up to the fuse, goes through the fuse, comes down here. This used to be plugged on right here at the red strip on the terminal. I just cut the spade off and wire nutted it to the white. That goes over to that relay and it comes back on the red. This is stranded wire, so I went ahead and crimped me on a little tiny terminal. And so we're back in business here. We got, as long as that smoke detector says it's okay, we should get red to here, as long as the transformer's good and the fuse is good. And while we're here at the transformer, I moved my primary tap from the 240 at the top down to the 208, which is one down. It's got this little plastic cap that covers the unused terminal. So I just moved it back up. We've got our high voltage coming around the wall, coming in the side. Put me a little service loop there. If you've ever worked on any of these old electric heat kits after 20 years, not that this will last that long, but if these spades get a little loose, everything starts getting hot right here and it ends up cooking the wire. So when you can, leave you a little extra wire there. So here's the thermostat wire. I'm gonna run a new one to the outside. This is the one coming from the building control system. I'll get it cleaned up here and we'll start making these connections so we can be done with the wiring in here. Okay, got the thermostat wires ran in here and connected up to the terminal strip. Of course, you wouldn't have to use like the orange and the yellow because there's nothing on the other side, but it just makes a good connection point. Might be a good place to use your meter someday for troubleshooting. We got our Y1 and our orange. There's our whites. Of course, it goes to the heater. Our greens, only have one green coming in, but what I did, I ran an extra green right over here on this side in order to hook up this damper up there. This is the wires for the 24 volt damper. I did crawl up there and make sure it was 24 volts, and it is. So I'll talk to them before I do it, but I probably should be hooked up to come on when the fan's on. Just stuck some of this loom that you get like at Harbor Freight on there, just to try to tidy things up. I started to wire tie it, but that makes troubleshooting hard in the future, so you can just grab this stuff and pull it off where it's slit. So we should be in good shape as far as the wiring in here, with the exception of our fresh air damper system. If I put it in, I'll use their transformer. It says that thing pulls 1.5 amps. Now I don't know whether it does or not. It's a little, motor, pretty good size motor with a pretty good spring on it. But I'll definitely isolate it. I can get my 208 volts right over here from these extra spade connectors. Mount the transformer over here, mount a relay beside it. Use a new relay. That old one looked pretty rough. And then this will be my control voltage, and I'll need to get a common. I'll get the common, probably steal it from right here on this heat kit. Put a Volkswagen clip there or something. This is a little limit that locks it out until you reset the power. These limits will reset themselves when they cool down. If this one gets too hot, you'll have to kill the power at the breaker in order to get it to come back. So I'll go ahead and pick it up on the side going in rather than the side coming out, because that's what it breaks. It looks like it breaks the common going to your sequencer switches down here. So that's pretty much it for in here on wiring. I think I'm going to jump outside and get that old unit cut loose and see if I can muster it around to the trailer. That way I could take it back to the shop and get rid of the trailer and the old stuff, and maybe pick me up some lunch. Well, lunch was good. I'm back. Here is the new Goodman GSZB heat pump. I like that they're putting a removable grill on it now. Kind of looks unfinished up here the way they stamped this. I bet a Mana comes with a plastic ring or something around it. But that's going to go here on this pad. Again, we're going to do a new line set. Of course, this pad is poured concrete. That disconnect is mounted on that brick wall, and this was all, you know, done with the help of engineers and architects. So I'm going to hold that unit as far this way as I can on this pad to try and leave room in front of that disconnect, because this unit's taller than the old one, and you know, no matter what, the old one was still in front of the disconnect. There's the feet, there's the disconnect. So I mean, you can't rebuild everything. They should have thought about that the first time around. That's a nice level concrete pad though, so I'm going to use it. Okay, I went ahead and finished up in here and got this fresh air damper rigged up. What I did, I went ahead and took the transformer out of the old Trane air handler, the actual control transformer, because it looked a lot better than that little one that Johnson Controls had put in there to start with that had never been used. It was already real rusty. So what we do, I just put it on over here. I had all this room. I tapped it off of my two main lugs, so I got 208 going into the 200 side of the primary here, and coming off of it, this damper, this one wire already had that crimped on fitting, or crimped on terminal, so I just plugged it straight to the transformer on one side, and then I did a jumper from the other side of the transformer down to the fan relay out of the old air handler. Figure if it was turning that big motor on and off, it could probably handle this little damper. So I ran it over to the normally open side, and then I took the other wire going up to the damper and went ahead and repurposed the fuse holder out of the old air handler, which is nothing more than a fuse and a couple of connectors, and went ahead and put a fuse on that in case that motor, you know, ever has an issue. It can pop that fuse instead of that transformer. So I'll end up tidying that up a little bit, maybe tying everything over here out of the way, but all in all, it's pretty clean in there for everything that's going on. I did go ahead, I had a little short blue jumper on the truck for the common, and I got to thinking, if the heat was off, the electric heat wasn't working for some reason, you probably wouldn't want it sucking outdoor air in anyway. So I went ahead and just jumped right off that bottom switch down there to get my common. So if the heat kit gets locked out there, it'll also lock out the air damper for a little bit there too, until they reset the power or the electric system, you know, has an outage and it comes back on again. So I guess I started moving this stuff when I got back here. It looks like old backboards or something, but I'm going to try to get this old line set out of here and start working on getting the new line set formed in here, and see how much we can get done this evening. Okay, they got about 3 tubes of silicone on the inside over there. So I've pulled this pipe out through the Rubatex, you know, far enough to be able to cut it off and get it out of the room from the inside. So I'm going to do that and then see about digging that silicone out, getting my new line ran through. Hey, little fella. What are you doing? Hanging out? Are you jumpy? Not too jumpy. Okay, I straightened out my 7/8 copper and stuck it through the hole here. And then what I did, I measured to see how much I would need for this bend and that bend. And came way back here and started bending it up and bringing it back as it went until I had a 90 degree that went way up toward the ceiling. And then I got me a mark on this piece, sticking straight up at the elevation of this. Slid it back out through the wall, past this duct, and bent it down this way. So we've got it coming over here, and now I've bent this last bend and cut off the cap on the unit and got it stuck in there. And what I'm doing now, I'm just getting it set about where it's going to be so that I can come out here and mark and bend. I'm going to have to go 90 over and 90 back. And the easiest way to do that is mark it, pull it out a little bit, put my bender in here, bend it, and then push it back again. Otherwise you end up having to put that reverse bending attachment on, and it's just a mess trying to get it to work and not kink the copper up. So I'd prefer just to use the normal bender to bend this. My little buddy's still there. Okay, so when it was pushed all the way back and stuck in the unit, I marked that I'd like to have my bend come out about right here. And I also marked the top, because when I pulled it out of the unit, it tried to move a little. I've got it propped up against my ladder right now, so it's still pretty close to being plumb in there, but I need to raise this. I need to be up about 8 1/4 inches to the center of it when I put my pump ups underneath here, and currently we're about 5, so I need to come up in this distance. I'm going to need to come up about 3 1/4 inches, and I ain't going to try to figure out no exact degree or formula or anything. I'm just going to turn my bender upward a little bit as I bend this, so that it'll start climbing a little bit, and hopefully it'll be okay. So what I did here, I pretended this pallet was my slab, since it comes, you know, pretty close to the edge right up here, and I measured over, and it's roughly 7 inches from the center of the vapor line to the edge of the slab. So I measured this off and marked it, and got the same 7 inches right there. And we also, by the time we needed 8 1/4, there's, oh, I can't do it. Anyway, when you pick it up with your Rubitex going through that hole, you've got 8 1/4. So what I'm going to do now is measure from the front of the slab back and figure out where to cut this off. Again, trying to keep the unit as close to the front of the slab and this edge of the slab as possible. And I'll go ahead and cut this off, and we'll be ready to, well, I'll probably go ahead and stick that little liquid line in here. It'll be a lot easier, but I just had to get all this bending done before I could set the unit over here. But once I get this cut off, I'll put that little liquid line in, get it kind of somewhat close, and I'll put the unit on its pump ups, and we'll start brazing. Okay, I'm liking the way that's going to look. Getting ready to put, I've got my valve cords out of both of those 2 valves. I'm getting ready to start nitrogen through them. I'm going to wrap them up with some wet rags, and I'm going to braze these 2 in out here first. Well, we got a test owner. I waited till the children left before I brazed in here. You just never know, you know, when a real sensitive smoke detector is going to go off on you and evacuate the whole place. But everything seems to be holding good so far. I will start putting this door back on, and I guess I'll go ahead and pull a vacuum tonight, because if I get it done, even if I'm not finished, you know, with the wiring outside and everything, I can go ahead and turn it loose, and that'll be ready. And then in the morning, I need to tape up the supply duct and patch up that insulation. I'll have to run a drain and run high voltage to the outdoor unit. I'll go ahead and do the low voltage for the indoor unit tonight, because I may flip it back on and see if we can see it from the building control system. Well, we'll know if it's seeing it, because it'll turn the fan on. Well, maybe not at this time. Once school lets out, they put it in unoccupied, so it'll probably go off. Oh well, I could call them and tell them to flip it on from their phone. They got an app on there. I may do that, but at any rate, we'll finish it up in the morning. I'll do a few more things tonight, and no point in killing myself trying to finish it today. They don't need it tonight anyway. Of course, here's the hole I was talking about, where if you take the drain pan out, it leaves, and I was just going to put a piece of tape over it, but I can't hardly stand that. I still got the drain pan out there. I'm going to try something different. In just a few seconds with the little vibratory tool there, and I've got that little plug cut out. Now let's see if we can tape it in from the inside. So she'll just push through the gasket like that, and I'm going to take some of the stringy tape and put right over the top of it here. Should be good enough to fool somebody to think it still has the pan in it. And there's the back side and the other side. I think that'll look a lot better than a piece of tape. She's got a new filter in there. It's dated. Got my initials on it, so I'll know if it's mine next time around. And I'm gonna put this little filter door on. Goodman gives you these little thumb screws to trade out. They got little retainers on them. They come in the package. I rarely ever use them because normally the filter's not right here at the unit, but in this case it is, so we got to use it. I tell you what, school let out, and the playground out here beside me filled up with parents and kids and cheerleaders, and I'm not sure what's going on, but I wanted to show you this stuff. I've had this one can on this gun for probably 2 months now, and it's still got some in it. All I do, of course, I usually wipe it off a little bit. My brother-in-law was helping me rough in a house the other day, and I sprayed around the boots as I put them in, or he did, and he didn't wipe it off, but it's no big deal. All you got to do is take your knife and scrape this dried foam off the outside, and then you just loosen this nut on the back, and it's ready to spray foam again. And like I say, you can use every drop out of this can, and the cans aren't that expensive, but what does it say? One of these equals 22 quarts of caulk, or Lord knows how many cans of spray foam it would equal. But you know, with regular spray foam, you never use the whole can, or you end up trying to find places to put it. This way you just use what you want and go on to the next job. Well, it works if you close this off every time you use it. I didn't tell him how to use it, apparently. I told him how to open it, but he didn't think about closing it. So it's probably stopped up good now, but I just closed it. I'm gonna open it and try it, but I'd say I'll have to run some cleaner through this gun, or it may be ruined even. But you gotta always close this knob off when you get done, because that's what seals that little hole up in the end and keeps the air from getting to the foam. Like I say, it wasn't doing anything, but I opened it and shut it a time or two, and it looks like it wanted to start spraying, so let's try it and see. Oh yeah. So even if you don't do it right, it's still a good thing to have on your truck. So I'll never buy regular spray foam again. Like I say, all you got to remember is just close this thing off when you're done. Which is probably, now that I think about it, why there was so much on the end of that. It just kept oozing out because he didn't close it up when we finished. But that was my fault for not telling him. But no harm, no foul. We can keep on going. I've been carrying another can around with me every job thinking I'm going to need it, but I haven't yet. I've got the vacuum resting there with the pump off to see what it does. Got it valved off there at the core remover. The side yard is still completely full of kids and parents, and I ain't going to move that van as long as there's people sprawled out everywhere in chairs and on blankets. So since the thermostat's wired up out there now, there's nothing that should short. I think I'll go ahead and turn this thing on and see if they've got it. They may have these things occupied, I don't know, but we'll be able to see at least if the blower comes on and if the fresh air works. Okay, I hear the transformer buzzing, but it's not cut the fan on or anything yet, so I just pulled the 24 volts for our damper off of the relay here, and I'm going to touch it to the, there we go. And she's open. Probably too far. Might have to adjust it. But at any rate, I'll let them do that. I'll just tell them it's working now. So, uh-oh, I just heard the relay click. So I guess we're getting ready to get a call for fan. Yep. So it just had a little bit of a delay, which is good. Alrighty. I need to look. It's on speed tap T4 right now with the jumper where it is. We'll look in the book and see what that says. Okay, here's our chart. Second row, or a bunch of rows down, is our 48C air handler that we're using. T4, if you come over to about a ½ inch of static, says 1560 CFM, which is probably a little much. I think the rating on this AHRI was 1450, but it don't hurt to move a little extra air unless you're looking to control humidity better. So I'm just going to let it eat right there, and we'll check static tomorrow. I'm going to go out and see if it tried to pull the contactor in. The contactor is not pulled in at this point, at least. Like I said, it may have a longer delay on the compressor than it does on the fan with the built-in control. But what I'll do, I'm going to run inside there. I've got a key to the door. I'll make sure that that slide bar on that zone sensor is slid all the way down, which would, you know, normally be like 71 degrees or something. I'm sure it's a little warmer than that in there. Well, I still might be able to get into it. They don't have the, it's all the way down. It's about 75 in here according to that. I'll leave it all the way down. So they may just have it locked out, but if it don't come on tonight, it'll come on tomorrow when they occupy it in the morning. So I will go back out here and double check that vacuum, and if it's still holding, we will turn the charge loose. Ooh, she's still holding 389. It's been about 10 minutes. And while we were in there looking at the zone sensor, the contactor pulled in. So it's calling for cool right now. So I'm gonna let this thing sit here a few more minutes, and then I'm gonna turn the charge loose. Okay, if you look right here on the label, it says minimum circuit amps 26.2. Yeah. And then the maximum fuse or circuit breaker is 45. So the 26.2 is how you size your wire. So I'll put number 10 wire, which will be good for 30. These 60 amp fuses are really just for the disconnect. It's got a 50 amp breaker, but I don't know if you can get a 50 or 45 amp breaker for those Bowden Square Ds right now. Probably not. But since it had a fuse block out here, I just went ahead and ordered some 45 amp dual element fuses. So that way we've met the rating exactly. We got the 45 maximum and we've got the 26.2 minimum. And that's how you do it. A lot of people say, no, you got to size the wire according to the fuse, but you don't, not on heat pumps. It's a special exception. The fuses protect the heat pump, and they need to be a little bigger because of the locked rotor when that compressor starts. What really protects this wire is both these motors, the compressor and the fan motor, have a thermal cutoff in them. If they start to pull too many amps or get a little warm, they shut down. So it's in the NEC. I'm not going to tell you where to go find it, but I can tell you that it's out there. I'm sure there's lots of good videos on the internet about it. I'm going to pop these 45s in it, hook up the other end, and I might just make sure it runs before I leave. Still got a lot of people out here. I'm afraid to move the van. We got gauges on her, clamps on her. It's still calling. I'll turn the breaker on inside. So you know what they say. It'll either work or it won't. Should be pretty close on charge if the factory did their job right, because we've got right at 15 to 18 foot of line set on it. So we'll let her run for a little bit here, and I'm gonna start picking some stuff up. It's starting to get dark. These people can't stay out here much longer. She's a chooching good. Got a 8-degree subcool and an 11-degree superheat. I went ahead and grabbed a fitting and a trap just because of course it was sucking a lot of air in here, and I knew it would be backing that water up. So I primed that trap and she started rolling. Stuck my rag bucket under it for now. I could connect a couple of pieces to it just loose here and let it run tonight. I can't do my drain like this, of course, because you have a filter in here. So it's got to either come this way, which will make it a little difficult. The filter only comes up about this high, but you still got to take this nut off. Or what I may do is just turn it 90 degrees this way, put a clean out tee, put my trap, try to hold it up, you know, as close to this as I can. I have to put some kind of spacer there. Come across here, 90, and go down into the drain over there. So I got options. I'll sleep on that. I'm not going to do that tonight, even if I have to go turn the air conditioner on in the van and sit there until these people leave. This is conditioned space. It's pretty dirty. So this little bit of leakage ain't hurting anything. I might go ahead and stick a little bit of drain on here and let it run tonight. It's been off for a good long while. I looked at it over a week ago, and I don't know how long it had been off at that point. So obviously there's a lot of humidity in there. It's starting to drag out of there. Probably wouldn't hurt it a bit to run all night. I forgot about our copper. There was oil in it. There wasn't near as much oil as I thought there should be, or there would have been. But it's very gritty and it smells very bad. So I'm glad we changed it regardless. I mean, you could probably flushed it and kept it, but you know, you're not going to have a lot of velocity with an 1 1/8 line. Goodman says up to 25 feet, use 7/8 on that one, so that's what we did. So this is going to the scrap. And I think this is how I'm going to leave her for tonight. We'll leave these tools in here and leave it running. Got the gauges on. I'll take them off, of course. They just turned herself off again, but it's looking great. I'm not even going to turn them back on. I'm going to pull those off. I wish these people would leave, but I may have to get one of these parents to watch for me while I back out of here. But we'll see you in the morning. And we're back. I just rolled up. I didn't get here early this morning. I figured I didn't have a lot left to do, but she's been running because she's sweaty. Guess I need to get that duct sealed up and insulated and do something with this drain. Maybe put a strap on this guy. Choo-choo-choo-choo. And that should about do it in here, so I'll get started on that stuff. Okay, so we got our little drain hooked up here. I just went ahead and dropped it on down to the floor. Again, my thoughts on traps are always, if you can get enough head pressure above them, it might help keep them cleaned out. I don't know. Every foot is, what, 0.4 psi? So every little bit helps. Strapped it down here. I mean, they'd have to come in here and kick it to break it, and if they're going to do that, it's going to get broke anyway. Got my little hammer drill. I'm going to put a clamp on that conduit after it leaves the box, and then we've got to put one outside on the condenser as well. Okay, so she's strapped off. And out here, I just used the same hole that they used to have it strapped with. It's kind of going that direction. The old one used to kind of go up near the top. I left plenty of loop in this because on these Goodmans, if you need to get in there and do something, say like a defrost thermostat or even a TXV replacement, you can open this panel up and it can actually hinge all the way or take it completely off and lay it down. So nice to have a little bit of slack for that. So that's got the electrical tied up. Out here, we need to caulk around the line set, and we need to get these feet where they go and positioned and stuck down. So I got my little orange rubber mat. This is what they use to lay over power lines, you know, to keep the voltage from shocking them if they get up against it. When they fail test, there's a circle, see that hole right there, or that burn? That means they put it on a plate with a bunch of voltage and it burned through right there, so they throw them out. So if you know anybody that works at a place like that, those make great knee pads. Keeps you up out of the mud too on some jobs. And just like reusing the foam cans, it's really hard to reuse a tube of silicone. If it's, you know, been sitting around for a week or two, it gets, you know, hard deeper and deeper down into the nozzle. I always buy this type of silicone that has the removable ends. That's a solid plug there that you can just push out from the small end using a piece of wire and push it out the back and you're ready to go again. Otherwise, if this was a normal tube of caulk, I would have to cut the nozzle nearly that big to get it freed up again, and then it's kind of useless unless you're just, you know, filling a big hole. Sticking these legs under it, and I like to use these adjustable type anytime it's a poured concrete pad, because, you know, it's no leveling to it when I get out here. I'm not going to try to dig up this 4 or 5 inch thick pad and level it, but if you use these, you can adjust it a little bit. And in this case, this place has been here 20-some years, so it's probably not going to settle any more than it has already. But on new construction, you can go back and level up a unit if you use these. They cost a little over double what a normal, you know, one piece cost, but they'll save you some time and money later on, possibly. Well, with that done, you notice that outdoor unit's off. I turned it off when I first got here because tape won't much stick to a sweaty duct, so it's best that it be dry, which it is. So I think the only thing left is that. Y'all ever notice that I hate messing with insulation? I left it to the last possible moment. Hey, I know, let's do a static pressure test first while we can get to it right there. Okay, even though we've got a filter stuck in it down there and I'm below that filter, we have a total stack of 0.22. What is it? 0.14 on the return and 0.8 to 10 on the supply. Of course, I'm leaking a little bit of air, but at any rate, we were on that T-tap, or on tap 4, which at 0.2 is around 1710, and at 0.3 is around 1660. I think we should probably back it off to about T-tap 3, or we could even go down to T-tap 2, because the static will probably drop a little bit. I'm going to put it on 2 and we'll recheck the static. That'll give us over 1500 CFM on a 4-ton unit. And like I say, I think they rated this unit when they did the AHRI testing at 1450, I believe is what it said. Okay, here's our terminal strip, and you can see we're on T4. And the reason we know we're on T4 and not some other speed is because there's a black jumper between T1 and T5. Now, in the instance that you were using T1 or T5, you're supposed to take that black jumper off completely, and it's all in the literature here. It's kind of confusing, but in the event that you wanted to use T6 or T7 or T8 or T9, you have to run the black from T1 to T2, for instance, and then if you put your wire on T2, you wind up with T6. Or if you run your wire from the, you know, T1 over to T3, you wind up with tap 7 if you put your purple on T3. So you just have to look at this. I mean, I think it's more confusing than it needs to be. I don't know why you need so many speeds. As you can tell, you know, many of these motors, a lot of people will run the fan on a lower speed if they just have the recirculating capability of the fan. And then if the compressor comes on, it'll change and go a different speed. Or if the heat comes on, it might even go a different speed again. So you would be able to do that on this system. In fact, if it were mine, I would probably do away with this relay entirely and just run my speed taps, you know, off of my either my compressor or my electric heat or my fan. And you could do that easily with this system. You just have to do a little rewiring on it. So I think someday when these relays start failing, there'll probably be a lot of people that just eliminates them out in the field and go straight to, you know, making it hit the motor for the actual speeds that it wants. But for now, I'm going to move this purple wire down to T2 and we'll turn it back on and do another test. Okay, I tried it on tap 2 and it was a little bit low. So I'm just going to go back in the middle and put it on T3. So we'll button her back up and try it one more time. Okay, I just flipped her back up, waiting on the UNT to reboot. And it should come on, and we'll know when it's coming on. We'll hear that damper right there. Bingo. So I hear the motor ramping up. I think she's going to settle in about 0.4. Let's see what we got there. On T3 at 0.4, we've got 1545 CFM. That's perfect. Close enough anyway. So we will just tape up the duct. We ain't got nothing else we can find to do, so might as well get with it. Okay, I taped across the front. This was the end of a row, but we've still got just enough to go across the back here. And see the extra backing that's on here? What I'm going to do is get this behind it, get that pulled through to the opposite side, get it stuck on this back corner back here, and then once I get that stuck good, I can come around here and line it up and peel off the backing at the same time. And then you can take a stick or something and rub it down to make it seal good. So I'll see, it'd be hard to get any video of that, but I'll kind of show you as I go what I'm talking about. Okay, I've got her stuck on this back corner. And I've got her right here. This tape was just a little bit short to wrap around the end, but I can reach this no problem once I get her lined up and pulled off. But I'll get on my ladder where I can see what I'm doing. But basically all I'll have to do is pull on this backing, and the tape will kind of automatically try to stick to the unit, and then I'll get something and rub it down good and tight. I've got a hold of the corner of the tape, and like I say, if it had been 2 inches longer it would be a little easier, but I'm holding it right where I want it while I grab a hold of this and pull on it, and that's exposing the sticky stuff, and it's sticking right to the unit. And I don't know how tight we can get. There's the tape right here. I've just rubbed that part down with my finger, which is about as far as I can reach. So now we'll find something and rub the rest. Let's use this thing. I'm not sure what it is, but it's kind of like a big squeegee. So we'll get this in here and rub it back and forth and make sure that tape sticks good. Perfect. And don't forget to plug your test hole. All right, let's tidy up the insulation. Well, finally got that part done. Went ahead and flipped the outdoor unit back on. One thing I forgot to mention was when we was doing the static, you might have noticed even though I slowed the fan down, the static increased. And the reason is we shut down a damper right here on this fresh air. The maintenance guys came by in the middle of me doing the speed tap test, and they wanted to limit the amount of air because that damper's cranking wide open up there. And I said, well, maybe they put a damper right here, and sure enough there was. So we choked down on it while watching the static pressure, and you could actually, you know, tell how much how much difference it was making. So we're putting a little less outdoor air and a little more indoor air now, so therefore the static went up because it's probably a, you know, longer distance. So clean up this mess and fill out the invoice. Well, always try to leave a place cleaner than you found it. That's a bag full of trash, and not all of it's mine. This thing's nice and quiet. It's got a 800 RPM fan, which helps. I can't even hear the compressor. In fact, standing here, I can hear the P-Tax running across the way there more than I can hear this thing. Some of y'all may ask, why Goodman? Why didn't you put in a Trane or American Standard or Carrier? And bottom line is, well, there's several things. One, I'm not scared of Goodman. I've put in quite a few of them, had real good luck with them. I mean, the cabinets are a little flimsier, but as long as you take your time and put it in and do all the steps you need for any, you know, good refrigeration job, you're going to be okay. But I guess B, the main reason, is warranty. Carrier, Trane, Merck Standard, any of the big guys will give you a 1-year part warranty and a 5-year compressor warranty for commercial. Goodman gives you 5 years parts and compressor. And that may not seem like a big deal, but if, you know, the way stuff is today, you know, you're going to have one of those ECM motors go out, you're going to have a coil leak, and the difference between 1 year and 5 years is huge. I gave them options of what they wanted or what I could offer, and they chose this basically for the warranty. If you know another unit that you can get 5-year warranty for everything, you know, all the parts, you know, put it in the bleep loop down below so I'll know about it. But right now, the brands I sell, this is the best commercial warranty they have going. So we'll call that a wrap. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you on the next one.